Go.
Today we're going to be studying watercolors. Right now what we're discussing is paper and the overall sizing of it. In order to do a watercolor, you need to apply water to paper, obviously. However, when we do that, it tends to make the paper warp, and overall the image that you produce will end up looking far different from your original product. And in order to avoid this, watercolor manufacturers have included a special gelatin sizing on the paper, kind of like Jell-O, which helps counteract that by absorbing the water. In order to use this, though, we have to activate it in a process we call sizing. Here on the board we have 3 different kinds of paper. This here is a 300-pound paper. It's so thick, in fact, that when we apply the water to it, it doesn't need sizing because the coating of the paper is so heavy that it absorbs the water, kind of like a paper towel. However, these two sizes here, 140 pound and 90 pound, are a lot thinner and require that Jell-O sizing. In order to do it, we're going to use masking tape, we're going to use a wet paper towel, and the piece of paper itself is obviously. And so we'll set these to aside. The first step is by activating the initial layer of the gel by placing a wet paper towel over the piece of paper and just gently pressing it down. This will wet the entire paper and get that Jell-O surface. The gelatin itself actually smells really bad and kind of like wet dog, so at this point we just sort of plug our noses and hope for the best. And so once we've got it completely wet, we take our masking tape and we cover each edge. The added benefit of doing this is that once you've done your portrait, it gives it a nice white framing around your overall image. And so we'll just apply these to each edge. You don't need to make them tight because the paper right now has just expanded and it'll shrink back to its original size once it dries out. And if we make it tight, that'll end up just tearing the tape. And so we apply it to all 4 edges, and you can do several things from here on out. Some artists choose to leave it overnight in order to completely dry out the paper, and so the paper will now be more absorbent once it's dried. And then some artists choose to do what's called wet and wet, in which they just go right off with that wet paper and they apply color right away, which gives it a neat effect as the color bleeds throughout the paper. This is really useful for sky scenes as well as clouds, and giving it just sort of an impressionistic look. And so hopefully you enjoyed our tutorial and learned quite a bit today, and we wish you good luck painting.